This modern hospital may seem worlds apart from the days of ancient sorcerers, but for psychiatrist Stephen Strange and his beautiful patient, this is where those worlds collide. And the nightmare begins. Nothing Stephen Strange learned in medical school could prepare him for an attack by an evil sorceress from the fourth dimension. A villainess who can only be stopped by an earthly master. Now it's up to Stephen Strange to take the place of the Earth's last sorcerer.
Something tells me I rented the wrong Doctor Strange.
Into the fourth dimension with Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange was directed by Scott Derrickson and it stars Bum Bum Cumberbatch, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Tilda Swinton. What if I just talked like that all the time? What if, like, that was my review voice? Like, every time I did a review, I would use that voice. What would you do? Alright, let me start this video out by saying, as a comic fan, this is huge. I never thought this day would come. Like, Doctor Strange has always been one of my favorites. Like, in my top 3, I gotta say, like, top 3 comic books, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, and Deadpool. And all 3 of which were in a film this year. How nuts is that? So if you're not as big of a comic aficionado as I am, let me give you the deets on Doctor Strange. Dr. Stephen Strange is a grade A surgeon with a grade A ego. More like Dr. Douche. After a fatal accident, his hands get jacked up permanently. He spends every last penny of his mad wealth trying to fix them. Finally, he comes across a group of magic dudes and he trains to become super duper magic Dr. Man. Being a major fan of this character, the casting of him was very important to me. When it was announced that it was going to be Bumpy Cumbercatch, I was a little skeptical. This face just really didn't scream Doctor Strange to me. I personally thought Ethan Hawke would be a good match, but you know, whatever. I'm not in charge of things. Whatever. Anyway, when they announced Cumberbatch Cunderdict, I was genuinely pissed. But then Marvel released this photo, and it perfectly captured what a live-action Doctor Strange would be. Perfect costume, perfect hairstyling, and the magic looked great. It gave me faith that they were trying to do this movie right. And in the film, Cucumber Patch was everything I could have wanted from a Doctor Strange. He had fun with it, he made it his own, and an actor of his caliber could have just saw this as like a big Marvel paycheck and just phoned it in and just been Doctor Strange. Here he is, here to collect his money from all the royalties he's gonna get from being a Marvel character. But he took it seriously. Like, the serious scenes got really serious with his level of acting. And even when it gets a little silly, which Doctor Strange is a bit of a silly character, he didn't even flinch. And my only gripe with him as the character was that he was a little bit too likable. Let me put my comic book fan hat on. And let me tell you why I have a problem with that. Now, in the comics, Doctor Strange is just a complete douchebag. Like, he's awful. He's an awful human being before he gets his powers. He's a really good surgeon, and he knows it. And he turns down, like charity work. He turns down very sick kids to help further his career. In the movie, he turned a few things down, but it wasn't like anything as big as like a dying child. But yeah, in the comics, he starts out as like a complete douchebag. And in this, he was more like Tony Stark. You know, he was a douche, but he was likable. And, like, I get it. I get what they were trying to do. You know, they have to make him a little bit likable. Otherwise, what's the audience here for? Who are they getting latched onto? But I think what made Doctor Strange so unique in the comics was his character arc. Was going from this complete dick to someone who's a hero, who can be considered a hero. But again, I get it. It's a writer's thing, I'm sure. They just wanted to make it more likable, and that's very understandable. Just something I had a gripe with. So, as I'm sure you may know, there was a lot of controversy surrounding Tilda Swinton playing the Ancient One, who, in the comic books, was an old Asian dude. Yeah, she's not that. But even back when they announced Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, I never had a problem with that as a comic fan. I personally love Tilda Swinton. I love everything she's done, and her joining the project just gave me even more faith in it. The Ancient One in the comics is a bit of a cliche character. He's a character that we've seen in films time and time again, and if we were to do it again, it would just be a tired trope and pretty stereotypical, and honestly, the more racist option. People just really like the phrase whitewash. And I mean, they're upset about the guy who's playing Iron Fist in the Iron Fist TV show, about him being white, when in the comics, he was white. I just don't understand things. I don't get it. I don't get things anymore. Anyway, Tilda Swinton is easily one of the best parts of this film. She made the character deeper and more interesting than it's ever been portrayed. And it was really nice to see an actress who's mostly in like independent films do something on this scale of film. Speaking of which, Chiwetel Ejiofor is also in this film as Mordo. This man is so good. Like, it's always been my belief that he deserved the Oscar for 12 Years a Slave way over Matthew McConaughey in his performance in Dallas Buyers Club. Chiwetel Ejiofor's performance in 12 Years a Slave was just literally the best of that year. And just like Tilda Swinton, he adds a certain charm and depth to the character that just wasn't there in the comics. The character with the biggest flaw for me isn't any surprise. It's been the biggest flaw in the Marvel Cinematic Universe since it started. Alright everyone, it's time to play What's Marvel's Biggest Flaw? Villains. It's the villains. And Doctor Strange is no exception. Mads Mikkelsen was cast as Caligulus. Pretty sure that's his name. Pretty sure. Caligulus. Mads Mikkelsen plays Caligulus in this film. And Mads Mikkelsen is an amazing actor. And with him cast as the villain, I thought he would finally break the trend of just like flat, one-dimensional villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. And it's not really his fault. He played it well, and there were some really fun scenes with this character. It's just, he was forgettable. Like most villains in the MCU, he was just very forgettable. He got the job done as a villain. He was the evil dude who our protagonist was supposed to fight. And they fought. And I just wish we could get a little more depth in villains other than Loki. And Loki. Zemo was alright. I liked Zemo. I liked what they did with that. But other than that, Marvel hasn't been doing so hot with villains. And along with the villain problem, the biggest flaws in this film are the usual flaws in every Marvel film. It's just the usual barrage of problems that Marvel typically has. The story is just kind of there. You know, it's your typical superhero origin story. They're not really trying anything new, which is such a missed opportunity considering how unique of a character Doctor Strange is. One of my favorite aspects from the comic books was Doctor Strange's Rocky-esque training. How he becomes an entirely different man through being broken down entirely, through just intense training. In this film, he trains for a bit, and then he gets really, really good at it all of a sudden, and then we're just done with that. We're done with that aspect, and the film moves on. Don't get me wrong, it was still a very fun film. I would have loved to see them try to do something new, maybe even something darker than they've ever done before. Especially because they hired Scott Derrickson as director, and he's known for horror films, such as Sinister. You know, seeing him, like, play with that world and add in a little bit of a dark element, I think that would have been fun, but, you know, the kids' movies, you gotta do what you gotta do. With Doctor Strange the movie, it was really style over substance, and oh boy did it have style. What this film will be remembered for is the visuals, for sure, and it gets knocked a little bit for ripping off Inception for the whole like buildings folding over, but it does that, sure. But it one-ups the hell out of it. And if you know me, like at all, you know I hate the overusage of CGI in films. And in this movie, it used a lot of CGI, sure, but it used it in ways that we've never seen before, which I'm totally fine with and I respect a lot. Because we're living in an era where we're just bombarded with non-stop CGI of like bullcrap that doesn't even need to be computer generated. But with this, it uses CGI, it uses technology that we have to show us things we've never seen before, and it's very awesome. There is so much well done psychedelic images calling back to the era of the original comics, When we pass through different dimensions, it plays great homage to the amazing original artwork of Steve Ditko. And it's definitely not the giant friggin' blue laser beam that just shoots up into the sky that the superheroes have to stop. It's in every single god dang superhero movie anymore. It makes me so mad. And the fight scenes are very fun and exhilarating, while trying new things to make up for the story not. This isn't the best Marvel film, but it's up there. I'd say top 5. Doctor Strange is in the top 5 Marvel films. It's very good, it's just not really trying anything new story-wise, but visually, it's amazing. I'm not one for 3D. I will never tell you go see a movie in 3D because I think it's just this big gimmick. You know, I don't think there's any point to seeing a movie that way, and it just gives me a headache in the long run. But if you have the opportunity to, see Doctor Strange in either 3D or just on a 2D IMAX screen, because it's a spectacle. It really is. I just wish we would have tried something new story-wise, but, you know, if it ain't broke, like I said, go see it in IMAX. Like, go see this in the theaters. It's worth that at least. So, I'm going to give Doctor Strange an 8 out of 10. So, I don't know if you noticed, but we're at a new location. It's a brand new set. It's all new. Thank you for watching, and as always, watch movies, my friends.